You may have noticed that darkness is on the rise, that those who are the stooges and the orchestrators of the takeover of your planet and humanity, shrouding it in an eternal cloak of darkness, are acting with greater hubris and boldness than they ever have before. So, if you were to observe this and take your assessment of what is occurring, what is the awakening status, then you may be alarmed. But we instead see it a different way. What we see instead is Hi, I'm Muzz iEvolv and welcome to today's channeling. Please like, subscribe, comment, share on this video now. If you haven't read this book yet, now is the time. It's called The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. This is a channeled book from the guides that you see me here with every week, and it's available in the paperback, in audio, and in ebook versions. I got great feedback. People are saying this is really a fantastic book. Some even say that it's one of the best they've ever read in the genre, which is such a blessing for me to hear that. I really encourage you to get your copy now if you haven't already. If you'd like to have a private channeling with me, that's something which is possible. You can see below there is a link going to an inquiry form where you can just make an initial inquiry, and that will start a conversation where I'll be able to tell you more about how it works, what the cost is and so on. And then after that, you can decide if you want to continue. It's no obligation to make that first inquiry. And on to today's topic. It is, what is the update on humanity's awakening? Greetings and thank you for the question. What is the update on humanity's awakening? We have chosen this topic today because it is a crowd favorite. We have noticed that when we do channel on this topic of what is the update on humanity's awakening, it is received quite popularly. So we have decided to revisit it today because we are quite certain that there is a large proportion of the audience which are keen to hear what has changed, what has advanced, and what is the current position of humanity on its journey through the gauntlet of darkness to its culmination of the experience in the third density, which is to come to a place where they are poised to exit the third density and enter the fourth density as a completely different type of being. Let us begin this way. You may have noticed that darkness is on the rise, that those who are the stooges and the orchestrators of the takeover of your planet and humanity, shrouding it in an eternal cloak of darkness, are acting with greater hubris and boldness than they ever have before. So, if you were to observe this and take your assessment of what is occurring, what is the awakening status, then you may be alarmed. But we instead see it a different way. What we see instead is a relativity between the darkness and the wakefulness of the light, which has drastically changed and is accelerating in change as each day passes by. So, those that are wielding the darkness, they prefer secrecy. Yet, to achieve what they wish to achieve is no longer as easy as it used to be, because the light is getting organized. it is starting to take on a structure of its own. And this structure is unity. It is the individual units of the humanity being, which you all form together, coming together in recognition that you are unified in some way. And this initial way which you find yourselves unified is as a force of resistance to the change which is being foisted onto humanity by the malevolent ones, the cabal of darkness. And because of this wakefulness, this coming together, this unified spirit, now humanity is shining a light which is illuminating much of what was hidden before. So those that are working from the darkness, they are losing the luxury of having the capacity to be nefarious, to further their dark agenda without the greater humanity having an awareness of what it is that they are doing. So this apparent rise in darkness is more accurately described as a rise in the capacity of those that are centering themselves around the light to perceive what has always been taking place. Because those that are unified around the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum have for a very long time, many millennia, working towards the culmination of an agenda. And that is the total consummation of the earth within their paradigm of control. Yet, for most of this time, it was done in the shadows, under the veil of secrecy, without any inkling being had by the greater bulk of humanity, which carried on with their lives completely unaware. Now that the light within humanity is starting to become conscious of itself, and this consciousness of self very naturally will manifest as the coming together of humanity as a single force which is immensely powerful, and it is accelerating. So those that are unified around the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum, the unified malevolence, they can perceive that they are running out of time to culminate this generational long plan that they have been working towards. And while the light of awareness is shining onto them and illuminating all that they are doing, this revelation of their nefarious intent is compounded by this new reality they are faced with, where they are now in a race with the awakening of humanity. They are in a race with the dawning of the light. So, they can no longer luxuriate in the subtlety of slow and steady change that has been their main instrument in the past, where the change they have implemented over generations has been so slow, so gradual, that it has been mostly unnoticed by the greater humanity. Very much like this simile of the frog within the boiling water. Slowly, slowly the temperature increases until it is deadly for the frog to stay in, but the frog does not leap out, as the change has been so gradual that it does not entirely notice what has occurred. But if that temperature was increased to maximum very, very quickly, then the frog would not have the habituation of this gradual temperature change and leap out. And this is what is occurring now within the human context, because the darkness and those that are allied with the darkness, the minions of darkness, they are faced with a situation where they must crank up the rate of change they are trying to foist upon humanity to a maximum so that they can beat humanity's awakening. But this demonstrative effort, which has now become necessary for them, has become a very potent tool of awakening for the bulk of humanity. And so, all that they do now does little more than to serve the function of awakening humanity on a larger and yet more rapid scale. The darkness now truly has taken its place as the blessing humanity needs to complete its transition through the third density so that it is ready to make the transition into the fourth density. So if you're fortunate enough to at this time be aware of the existence of the Cabal of Darkness, Unified Malevolence, and similarly having an awareness that it is acting on a dark agenda and it is using all of the pillars of influence and control that it has at its hands to shape your reality, to shape your perceptions, to shape your energy within, then it can be harnessed to push you further into the light. You can navigate through this treacherous maze that they have created so that you still become the receptive device for the message of truth, sidestepping the landmines of dishonesty and illusion which they wield to further their agenda and to sink their unwitting minions deeper into this false narrative matrix which they construct. Then from this place of illumination where you find yourself, you can use all that they do, all that they say, all of the energy which they attempt to broadcast into your reality as a continuous reminder of what is truly at stake here. What is truly the most potent facet of your reality. And of course, that is the energy, the energetics of you and your environment and how you interact with it. Ultimately, what is occurring in the Earth human experience is the dawning of the light and the rejection of the darkness. It is entirely an energetic paradigm which is playing out. And so, rather than being weighed down by the physical aspects of your life, by the difficulty you may have with the circumstances which are coming into your life, be more cognizant of your energy. Realize that you are an energetic being having a temporary physical experience. And so your truest power, the true depths of your capacity, are not contained within the physical avatar, but are contained within the infinity of your eternal beingness. And from there, you have access to an infinite reservoir of the light, a spectrum of energetic qualities which can be succinctly defined as love and its derivatives. And when you are in a state of awareness that this is what you truly are, then when your outer circumstances become more difficult or take on a shape which is a direct consequence of what the unified malevolence is trying to foist onto you to increase your suffering, to increase your misery, to increase your preoccupation with all of these energies from the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum. Do not allow those to become part of your self-identity. Do not make the erroneous self-conception where you believe that you are these elements of the darkness, where you believe that you are sad, you are angry, you are hateful, you are desperate, despondent. Instead, when you experience that emotional quality which feels unpleasant, allow it to be the reminder of what it is that you truly are. That you truly are the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum. You are gratitude, peace, happiness, joy, bliss, love. You literally are those things. And the darkness occasionally will bless you with the reminder that this is the truth of who you are. It is now acting in a way to keep you focused on the truth of who you are. And every time that you feel something unpleasant within, an unpleasant emotional quality, give thanks to the circumstances and those that are constructing your reality, your societies, your cultures, from the set point of darkness, that they're giving you this very valuable service at this time to continuously remind you that you are the light, to point you back to the light so that you may continue this journey. When you look around your planet and you see major elections taking place, and you may have noticed that it is very obvious that something isn't quite right. And it appears that those that share interests and values and virtues with you are losing elections, even though there is substantial evidence that they should not have lost if all things were handled fairly. And those that voted for this losing political group seem to be those that are centered around the light, that have a belief in God, that wish to come together to ensure prosperity for all those that are within the group and all those even that are without the group. Yet, even despite their immense popularity, it appears that they do not win. And instead, it is a minority which share principles which you feel are incongruent with the truth, are incongruent with the true values and virtues of the light. And they appear to be rather unpopular, yet they win the elections. We would like to remind you again that this is not something which is new. This is something which has been going on in your reality for a very long time. But what has shifted is that this methodology which they use and have used successfully for a very long time to install the people that they need in these vital positions to march forward this agenda, this globalization of all aspects of what it means to be human, centralized into a single system which is under the control of a very small minority, is visible to you now because you are more wakeful than at any other time in the past. Humanity is waking up. And each time this occurs, where one of these fraudulent elections takes place, you will notice it is by less and less of a whisker that they get away with it. The opposition by the people, the unified voice with which they call out the fraud and the unfairness and the dishonesty is amplifying. And those that are running these fraudulent elections, in the past, they would pull this off with absolute ease, and no one would even be aware that this is what they had done. But then, starting in this last decade, there was rumblings that something doesn't seem right. And more people begin to agree with this assessment. And now it has reached a point where it is almost hysteria of the people, calling out the fraud, pointing out what is obvious to them and all those that are unified with them. And so those that are pulling off the fraud are getting away with it by just a whisker, just by the skin of their teeth. And the point that we are making is, even though it may be disheartening to see that they get away with it again, understand the trajectory. There is a tendency which is amplifying, which is escalating. And they are getting away with it by less and less and less and less each time. And eventually, a threshold will be crossed where they will not get away with it anymore. And this will spread across the planet. Still, humanity is waiting for which major election on a global scale will be the first to be overturned and reversed on the basis of criminal fraud. The cabal of darkness is fighting all they can to prevent this reality from occurring, because they understand the cascading effect it will have, the ripple across the planet, once this occurs on the initial basis. The precedent is set. Because once this occurs, then it shall spread across the planet. It has already occurred on smaller iterations. There have been smaller elections which are for the governance of smaller regions within countries, which have already been reversed on the basis of discovering fraud. And there has even been an entire country that reversed the results of its election on the basis of the discovery of fraud. And we are speaking about Myanmar. So, the model is already in place. And those that are working from the position of light and who have the authority and the power to implement significant change, to overturn fraudulent elections, have become students of what has occurred in these other smaller regional and smaller country elections that were overturned on the basis of discovery of fraud. They have seen how it was done, and they have developed their own strategies which they are waiting to implement when the time is right. And the time will be right when humanity gives the signal that the time is right. And humanity will give the signal when the unified voice with which you all speak becomes amplified enough, then it cannot be ignored. And that those who have this power acting from the light and can implement these significant changes can do so with a justification that it is for the people, that it is what the people want. And so, this is why it is important that you remain focused on the light, that you remain a demonstrative vessel for the light, that you act with virtue, that you are a being entirely of integrity and honesty and dignity and so on. Because this magnifies the intensity of the vibration of the light And very naturally, it will begin to create a resonance in those that are not yet fully awake. In those that are still lost in the illusion, lost in the darkness, still a believer of the false narrative. Yet even though they continue to believe, they are beginning to notice there is a dichotomy of belief forming within themselves. They still go along with the false narrative as if it is the truth, but there is a niggling feeling within that they are yet not ready to acknowledge that something isn't quite right. It is their own intuitive sense. It is their connection to this higher aspect of themselves, which can see what the truth is and is broadcasting to them an intuitive guidance, a signal to reconsider what their beliefs are. And this intuitive guidance, which is within them, is resonant with the light. So, when you are a being primarily of the light, and you act with virtue, integrity, dignity, and so on, then you emanate an energetic vibration which is resonant with this intuitive guidance within them. And you will literally amplify it within them, like turning on the light dial, where you can control the amount of brilliance which comes from the light by turning the dial. This is the effect you will have on these people. And this increased intensity of the light within themselves, because they are resonant, they are picking up on your vibration. And they pick up on your vibration because essentially you are the same being. You are both the one. And as such, you are created from the same constituents, the energies of the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum. And so really what is happening is they are seeing the truth, the light within themselves, because the light and truth within themselves is recognizing the light and truth within you. And it is vibrating more brilliantly because it is amplified, it is empowered. It is taking on a increasing sense of itself. And this does not need to come from your direct interaction with them, but literally just your energetic field will have this effect. Your energetic field is infinite. It goes to the very ends of the physical existence of all things. So all things are within your energetic field. There is no limit to who you are. So all others within the earth human field are enveloped by your energetic field. And as such, they will begin to question even more. Their thought will become even more dichotomous, where they become more doubtful of the false narrative matrix and more trusting of their own intuition, of this feeling that something isn't right, until eventually it will become an insatiable hunger. They must know. This is an equality of the light, an insatiable thirst for the truth, because an insatiable thirst for the truth is insatiable expansion, because the ultimate truth is that you are the one. This will be the culmination of the very purpose for which you were created, to realize that you are the one and always were the one. That is the ultimate truth, and that is where you are heading. And so you must be an insatiable, you must have an insatiable appetite for the truth, and greater truths, and greater truths, and greater truths, and greater truths across all time, until eventually arriving at that place where you're in possession of the ultimate truth. So as the light becomes more amplified within them, this insatiable thirst for the truth will initially manifest as wanting to know, what is the truth of my reality? what is really happening in my experience, in my world, is the impression I'm given through these instruments of control and influence actually what is occurring? Or is it, as I'm beginning to become suspicious, false? And they will inevitably move more and more and more into the light as they discover greater truths and reject the falsities which have been thrust upon them. This is the same as purging the darkness, letting go of these beliefs of self, which are a misconception, and moving instead into the light, because that is the revelation. If I am not the darkness, if all that I have been told about my reality is false, then I reject that. And with this burgeoning understanding, awakening of consciousness, that there is a polarity to the spiritual spectrum, one end the darkness, the other end the light, then it becomes, by a process of elimination, a revelation that I am the light. Because what else can I be if I am not the darkness? And so then there is a shift into the light. And yet another one of you join this awakening of the light becoming conscious of itself, the formation of the humanity being, and the force which you all exude together becomes even greater. And the acceleration becomes even more rapid. And the darkness is forced to even greater degree to come out of the shadows in their sprint for the finish line, trying to arrive at the culmination of their vision, which has been carrying on over millennia, many generations, before they run out of time. And they are illuminated by the light to such a degree that they wither and perish. This is their fear. And as your movement into the light increases, their movement into the dark also increases. But movement into the dark is unpleasant. It is unpleasant when it is by desperation. It is by a fear that if they do not move faster into the darkness, that they will lose it all. So, you are moving into greater states of love, and they are moving into greater states of fear and terror. Let us finish in this way. Whenever you become aware of something in your society which makes you have concern, such as what's occurring with the increased rates of death, which is occurring across your planet, for what the experts claim is something they do not understand. But of course, those that are awake are very cognizant of what the main reason is. And when considering that there is now going to be another push to get the jab, there is going to be another push to put on a mask, there's going to be another push to lock oneself down. Understand that these are used as instruments for multiple purposes. And one of those is to demoralize you, to make you feel that you are powerless, to make you feel that there is no chance that you will prevail and that the lightness will overcome the darkness. Because the darkness is so omniscient that it can literally come into your own home and control whether or not you can walk out of your front door. However, this is having a very shuttered view of that reality, which is what they prefer. But instead, look at it from a larger, more broader perspective across a larger section of time. And you will see that when these things occurred in the past, there was much greater compliance. There was much less of a voice in opposition. There was much less perception that what is occurring isn't what it is claimed to be. But when those same methods are employed today, there is much more awareness that it is not what they say it is. There is much more of a unified voice in resistance. There is much less compliance. And so then if you extrapolate into the future, you can see that the results they are able to yield from their methods is going to decrease to the point of being zero. And the greater humanity's ability to shake off the burden and the yoke of tyranny is increasing, and to the point where it will be 100%. This is the extrapolation. This is the graphical tendency. Humanity is increasing like this in its power to be the controller of its own destiny. And the darkness is decreasing in its power to be the controller of the destiny of humanity and the planet. So, remain focused on the light, such that you can become a broadcaster of the light, which activates a resonance within those that are starting to have their own bubbling of an internal intuitive guidance. So you literally turn up the dimmer switch within them, and then they start to go through their own process, which you yourself went through some time ago. And they will inevitably join the network, this growing awakening of the light within all of humanity, the assembling of the humanity being. And one by one, and individual by individual, all of you will grow in your might until eventually the inevitable will occur. And that is that the tsunami of light, which is broadcast from the beacon of this unified being, the humanity being, becomes undeniable, becomes irresistible. And those that are manufacturing the darkness will be completely inundated and fully exposed to the point where they are rendered impotent. And their service will have been done, because it is through the intensity of the darkness that they have blessed humanity by pushing it the final section of its transition through the third density into its own awakening and realization that it is the light and nothing but the light. So that the greatest proportion of you possible are ready when the ascension event occurs, so you can transition, emerge from the birth canal of ascension into the fourth density state as the unified being, the humanity being. Then each of you will have an unprecedented capacity to be human, because you will be tapped into a beingness which contains many billions, rather than just the reservoir of the individual which you access now. You and all others who make this transition will be the Jesus Christs of your reality. All of you will be in possession of those qualities. And this will be the second coming of your Savior. This will be the return of Jesus Christ, but not as Jesus Christ the individual, but instead as the Jesus Christ within each of you. You shall be the divine being, fully awakened to what you are, your connection to the One, your constituency of the light and nothing but the light, and your connection to each other to form the single being, the unity, the humanity being. Feel good about what is occurring in your reality now. Look at the energetics. It is all in your favor. The momentum is in the direction in which you wish to head. So, have peace. Fill yourself with the energies from the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum, and thereby be of the greatest service which is possible for you in this evolution of the spirituality of the humanity being. Thank you, and we love you.